For a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second it.
Discussion on the agenda. Might move a couple things around depending on time, but. All those in favor?
Aye.
Or minutes of the December 9th meeting.
Make a motion.
Second.
Discussion on the minutes. All those in favor? Anyone has any conflicts of interest on matters or slow? Any public comments?
No public comments, Mr. Chair. Hold on, somebody just popped in. Call-in user, can you identify yourself? Mr. Bonneprice, is that you? Call-in user, can you identify yourself? They said they fixed it. All right, I'm not sure who that is.
Hey, you want to comment? Any supervisors not seated as committee members?
I think it is John.
Okay.
All right. Discussion regarding the nuisance ordinance. Just a minute.
Yeah, so I can. I think probably more, getting the calls as county board chair, it's just you field all these different calls throughout the year. And I had another call a couple weeks ago from a municipality and about the same issue. And it really comes down to the motels and the old motels within the county. So originally when we started the original nuisance ordinance, that was kind of where it kind of started. And I even discussed it with the family about, you feel like, hey, I'm coming to Polk County, right? I'm going to come here as a tourist. I'm going to use Dallas House for an example. I'm coming to St. Croix Falls and I go to the local hotel and I think I'm renting rooms next to other tourists. No, you're not. There's long-term stays there. There's, you call them homeless. You could call them criminals. You can call them, they're out on probation. Same thing with Serenity House. We have probation. And those folks that are finding places for someone because of meet their bond requirements. They got to stay in Polk County. They got to have an address in Polk County. They're being paid by the system to stay in Polk County. And now we've had last year, a little over a year ago, we had someone killed at the Dallas House Motel, one of the long-term stays. A couple months ago, we had another guy, and we had the SWAT team out there for a whole night and a day. The guy here in Balsam Lake ended up with a dead guy. And what I'm hearing, and especially from Balsam Lake, because it's one of my municipalities, is that it's like beyond what we can handle, right? It's we're trying to figure out zoning issues. We're trying to find a way to stop it. They don't feel like it's necessarily the municipality's fault, that the system, which is Polk County or the state, is kind of, they're kind of enabling it. I feel like, and I think that's what some of the citizens feel like is, they're the government, so to speak, or the people that get funding from the government are finding places. CJCC was in the minutes a couple months ago that Salvation Army was actually talking about the Dallas House being a emergency shelter now too for people. So I'm getting calls from mayors, police officers, village boards that the county would do something. So originally the nuisance ordinance, the reason we were going down that road a few years ago, nuisance ordinances overlay the whole county and overlay cities, townships. Biggest concern they don't want is that we come in there and start telling someone, hey, they don't want us to necessarily be in the middle of your fire pits are too big, your gravel road's dusty, their smell from the turkey farm is a nuisance. I haven't heard any of them say, hey, we want that level of, but clearly they need help with this issue. And you know, and it's kind of just something that we don't all know about. And I think a lot of people have questions like the motel at Apple River. I've talked to that the township people, and it's the same thing as it's being licensed as a motel. It's not a motel. Our health department licenses it. They go in there, they got to do a certain amount of rooms every year or two, you know, so the person opens them up and lets you look at a couple rooms. And I think it just would be good for the public to know, you know, either it's a hotel or it's a homeless shelter or it's something else, something. And, you know, it's not like, hey, let's run these people out of the community, but it's like, what do we do about it? And if we're going to use these old hotels in the county for housing people, I think there's some dignity that should come along with it, and that the county should say, all right, we'll license you, be that kind of a facility, but, you know, you need to have a fence around your yard. You know, these guys are standing out in the parking lot. You go to Centuria, they got their grills in the parking lot. You know, they got their parties when their family comes up in the parking lot. You see it at the Country Dam Motel. There's no yard. There's no place to park a car. No fence. You know, and I just feel like we need to not completely forget it, because it's Frederick now is getting a motel. I heard some people called on Frederick, that motel up there on the highway in front of Cummings Lumber. No one's lived in it for 40 years, even used it. And now all of a sudden they're fixing it up. And there's concern that, is that what that's going to turn into be? So I just threw it on the agenda. A couple people thought that maybe it should go to multiple committees this time, because last time it kind of, and Jason's got a big old book on it, but I think last time it got so big, it was like, oh, we need an employee, we have to go out and run around the countryside, you know, monitoring everything. And I don't think that was the intent, that, you know, we got down into the weeds. It was just, so I'm hoping we could start it off maybe very specific. We can go back, and maybe it's got some element of public protection involved. Last time was just in health, and zoning worked on it. I think there was some zoning stuff. So I just wanted to tee it up, get ideas. And then should we deal with this, or do we just say, yeah, let it keep going the way it is, and no one really knows what's going on in these places? So I've had more calls on that from town guys and city guys than CAFOs. Guarantee you that. From the officials.
So should we get it to a committee? Isn't that like our?
That's our job, I guess.
If there's an issue, figure out which committee should be dealing. You'd like to see it in public protection?
Well, it seems like law enforcement, you know, the one city mayor said, you know, they would like to come and have a meeting with their chief of police, with someone here at the county, about this idea. And so clearly it's a law enforcement issue a little bit. It's a zoning issue, obviously, too, but we don't do zoning. But I think if we're licensing motels, it's kind of, who's ever in charge of licensing, I'm going to come in with a real definition of what these things should be. I don't know where it should be. Is it health and then public protection a little bit?
I think we should get it to health to get the definitions of each one. Then the enforcement is after we do this.
Sure.
So I think health would have to come up with some of their things. But they could do it, define these, if it's a shelter, motel, tourist rooming house, whatever they want to call it. You know, whatever they have to license. And then after we get something in writing, then public protection would take it to see how to enforce it. That makes sense.
Yeah, one of the other because one of the comments, you know, that would probably come in those definitions. Because one of the comments was too, is, you know, hey, I'm coming to St. Croix Falls as a family. Hey, there's a nice motel, there's a supper club, and here's a family coming up with little kids. They're going to rent a room at a local motel. You got this feeling like it's all other tourists in the motel with you, right? You're all tourists visiting Polk County, and really, you're not. And so, is that fair to the public? You know, so one of them said, even if you had something on their website was required, you know, you walked in the door and it said on a piece of paper or a sheet that, hey, we do have long-term, you know, just even that, just that public would know, hey, you know, I get it. I'm renting something next to the notification thing. Like a community's notified if we have a pedophile that gets released in the community, right? Or we get something happens in the community, the neighborhood gets notified. But if that person resides in one of these motels, you don't know it as you come as a tourist to Polk County. And it just seems like Polk County is getting a lot of it now. And it's kind of happening at all these little old motels. And it's becoming a business. And people are finding these. And so that's,
I think it's subsidized by the government. That's why they're doing it.
Some of it may be.
That's.
I don't think it all is, but I think initially when you get out, you know, I think some of it is at the beginning.
I think they've always done that to some degree, you know. 70s. Henrik Motel is one room that was rented out most of the time then, but that was and it was used constantly by a state trooper. And imagine he'd be a pretty good partner to have next door.
But that'd be okay.
But these things have always been done, and I think what they've been doing is due to the economy and things that are in that business. I imagine they're so I think that scrutinizing them is obviously important. I think we got a definite.
Okay, now I can hear.
But
There he is.
a nuisance ordinance is so broad. We've got to, if this is what we're zeroing in on, good heavens, we could be bringing in all kinds of overflow from other industries and things that would be affected by a specific ordinance. But so we got to, I think, before we go to any other committee, is come to zoning and figure out what we want to try to control and how we want to control, but by which means. We got to be more specific on what we're dealing with.
That's why we'd have to go through health because they do the licensing.
Well, right, yeah, well, the health.
But what happened last time though is we threw this idea of a nuisance ordinance into health and it got huge and it just kept growing. And
That's my point.
And it got this, how many pages was it, Jason? 15 some pages maybe? Oh, 13 pages.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get something specific that we can talk about, discuss, track the issue itself. I mean, on the issue itself, one way or another, but zero in on something that's got some teeth in it. And
And that's the only nuisance that I get either regular calls or you just hear people talking about it more and more, what's going on with these motels. And so I don't hear, I mean, besides CAFOs, I don't hear anyone saying, hey, we need a nuisance ordinance to cover noise. Now, I know Garfield Township is dealing with it now, but I don't hear anyone, because last time it got into, well, I think we had other supervisors and said, well, I want a nuisance ordinance, and if the smell of a dairy farm, that would be a nuisance. And that's what I know you're saying, let's not get into, right?
No,
Right.
I'll tell you, a lot of the nuisances that are being dealt with on a town level.
Right.
Dogs, for an example. Burning is
Right.
another example. Noise is a tremendous. I get calls constantly on all of those issues.
Junk
Yeah.
vehicles.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get it to health.
Yes.
And
You want it health and zoning? Or just
Well,
health?
I'd like to send it with specific, the specific I want to keep it strictly to personally is what's going on with the hotels and motels.
Yes.
That's specific. That's
Yeah.
the only thing. Okay, Malia's got her.
One suggestion, it might be good, and I think that I could do this, is to have a conversation with probation and parole, Department of Corrections, about how these folks a lot of times get placed. And, you know, what is the mechanism, what is their obligation, so we can know what they're working with. And then bring that back either to public protection or wherever you send it. But that might be
Information, yeah.
to get the background of how and why are they being placed there and what are the limitations.
Well, and I'll go back to when we were dealing with the Serenity House. I remember with our village, you know, I can't tell you how many businesses now say, I don't have any false alarms anymore. No one's jiggling my door in the back of the hardware store in the middle of the night. Town has completely gone the other way now because of that, because we couldn't handle in the village. The interesting thing I found out was when we were doing our information, all our checking on it, all the police calls and all the nuisance we were having, was how many people had an ID, or what's that address? 100 Park Plaza. We went on the DMV because of the court system required these people to have addresses in Polk County. We had, I think, 30 or 60 ID or driver's license issued to 100 Park Plaza. So I know it has ties back to something across the street. And I think the biggest thing is that the public just needs to know what is going on, how do we deal with it? And the reason it was originally a nuisance ordinance, because the nuisance ordinance overlays municipalities. So if the county just had
So
a,
they're on zone,
yeah, it didn't matter
That's
if you're a city, a township. And if we did just strictly a county ordinance, well, then it just stays on county stuff.
Yeah, there's zone.
And that's where I think it needs to be broad, that it overlays all of our cities, because they're the ones that are saying we need the help.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
We can hear you. What do you got, Johnny?
I think it was about 6-7 years ago, I brought up a St. Croix County ordinance from Hudson. And the office down there shared some stuff back and forth with our office, and I don't know whatever happened to it. But I remember when I went and met with them down there, and I brought up that whole ordinance, and then it kind of, I think, went by the wayside. But we do have other information in the office up there.
But it was for everything.
That's right.
That's where it got too big. It was getting over the junk cars, the little things. I mean, it was getting way, how are we, like zoning, how do we enforce that? So part of the zoning part, this is what I'm afraid is, as soon as we push these a little, they'll condominium.
Well, you guys are working on that.
Yeah,
too.
we're working on that, but I mean, they can condo this and change it definitions fast. So that's why I think we gotta kind of work some of this out, because
Work it
that's
out.
another way to get around it. You know, or something like that happens. They can say, okay, we're gonna sell it to them.
To me, most of it is about, it's fine if that's what you want your business to be. I'm not gonna tell you how to run your business or what you put in your business, but just let the public know. Because the anticipation is that I'm going there, my family's going there.
As a motel.
As a motel. And if it's a homeless shelter, or if it's a housing center, then I just think, for me, most of it's about notification. If Dresser wants to have a motel in their village that does that, I think more power to you. But, the public needs to know what's going on. And it's kind of one of these things that it's happening, and it's just kind of getting more and more and more. And no one really knows what's going on, who controls it. And I go back to Country Dam Motel.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
it's got a
motel.
sign that says motel there, but it's never been open in years. And it's licensed as,
and get a room.
it says closed. It's got a closed sign on the door 24/7. It's never open. But our county licensed it as a motel.
So that's the definitions, health. has to be. Because like the other ones you do, I mean, like in Dallas, that has a pool and stuff. So now you're gonna bring your kids to a pool. There's people.
Oh, yeah, it's
Living
happening
there.
there. I know people that have been in the rooms there that have gone there for emergency calls, and they say that place inside is,
Yeah, a little tough.
yeah.
All right, so let's go into health.
And Malia's gonna make a couple of calls
Yeah.
and
To get some definitions to start with before enforcement.
I
think
just
we
like it
better-
to stay on executive that at least we know what's going on, that get an update on the process. And
Gotta start somewhere.
And then also check with probation parole and have them do that. Maybe public protection can all
with protection should at
get
least
with,
review it.
get with them right away and get some kind of a
least
definition
review
of
it.
what we're dealing with too. I
Right.
mean, we don't know. I mean, there's an incident happens at this motel or incident happens here. That isn't the whole picture of what actually is going on. Maybe they are 99% of the time they're a motel legitimately. And if there's an incident there, it doesn't mean to put them into a category where we're
Right.
going to restrict them from anything.
Right.
So let's find out more about the problem that we're facing also. And I think like Malia, funding, and a lot of it's coming through the state.
And I think one of the things that was interesting for our village is when we did our public records request for the village, we found out how many police calls were here at this address when the county was renting that out. It was amazing. 3/4 of the police calls or the sheriff's calls, 911 calls in Balsam Lake were to that address. So we knew it was a problem, but you can't ever really figure it out.
Yeah, well, let's find out what the problem is.
Yeah.
too. It's gonna take some time.
Right. Think we have time for your.
Okay.
Are you ready or we can?
Yeah, no, this is the sports complex. This is not a presentation as much as it's a outline for a discussion to kind of update you on where you are. So I just do it on the slide so it's easy to follow. I gave you the wrong one. The next.
Well, you can leave it. You don't have to hand them out twice. Don't read it.
Did you hand them out? Okay, market opportunity report. Do you have that in front of
Let's read ahead. I seen that. That was
you? Okay. Market opportunity. Okay, on the first slide, and Tim has worked with me quite a bit on this. And by the way, we've, the senior staff has talked through it on different occasions, getting input and so on. But as you recall, months ago, I reached out to a variety of consulting companies that analyze these as potential. It's a big business, right? There are a lot of these types of facilities in the U.S. and hired SFA because of their experience and expertise in it. And also because not only do they do the studies and look at potential, but they also have a wing of their division that manages it. So they have a sense for what might work and what might not work. And to let you know where we are, I'm going to present this just a discussion. Tuesday night, I'll pass out a draft to the board, and it is a draft still, but we're getting really close. And it will enable all the supervisors to take it home, read it, have a month, come back and discuss it with questions. And we'll have SFA here to present it to us so they can answer specific questions. The other thing I'll say is, remember, there's no timeline on this. It's not something that we have to do right away. We can, or we can delay it, for an indefinite period of time or end it. So, the study goals: analyze the possibility for constructing high-quality recreational facility, serve the needs while attracting new visitors and increasing economic impact. What we've seen is these things do have an economic impact on a locale. And in our cases, we think it would be an opportunity or a venue to help our youth and so on. We're looking at a sports, recreational, and other activities that could be housed there. Which ones would work? What would the facilities layout look like? And what is the size and the cost of the facility? Next slide. I got it. The SFA group and some folks here in the county met with, I think Mr. Nelson was there too, maybe not.
I went to one of
Yeah.
them.
Stakeholder meeting to gauge interest. And so that included athletic directors, area sports enthusiasts, or people who are in charge of clubs and so on, community leaders, either the city administrators or mayors or supervisors came. And some of the things that jumped out at us, one, it was in that group, they liked the idea, they saw the need. Some of the things that jumped out in the meeting as a priority of the groups as a whole is spring sports seasons are short in this area of the country. Baseball, soccer, softball, those types of things, the athletic directors would say, we get, half our season, we've never been outside, half our season is over because of that. So they like the idea of having some type of indoor space. Practice time is difficult to get with the current available sites, and either through limitations of number of them or because of weather. The other thing is they all agreed having venues and opportunities for youth and families would be important. Here are the types of activities that this group SFA analyzed. They looked at sports and activities, and they have a deep history of analyzing these types of sports. They've got their own database on measuring these things that they look at for this area that they studied with some depth: basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball, ice hockey, and as a trail hub to see what type of interest there'd be in the area, what number of users, number of active participants, and so on. They also looked at things like an equestrian facility, ATV, UTV park, or any type of motorized facility, aquatic center, and also community use. They looked at meeting space. They looked at family entertainment, those types of things. They broke it down into two types of models for this area. One they called a community model. Community model in that it probably isn't as big as the second type of model. It covers 60 to 90 minutes to draw for different types of activities. On that, they looked at 2 basketball courts, 4 volleyball courts, turf area. Now, this is not, so in their estimation, it's probably not feasible for us to have a facility and then have 6 baseball fields or soccer fields on the outside, because of cost, because of where we would draw from, so on. But a turf area was of high demand with our stakeholders, and their design is a indoor turf area which would have a couple of baseball infields, a couple of side areas, batting cages, a couple of other areas for running or exercise, or practice soccer or whatever. So it's a limited size, but it would be indoors. 1 ice rink. And what I found interesting is the numbers are not that great as these other sports, but the demand for ice time is so high that it would be used a great deal here. That would be for hockey, figure skating, leisure skating, those types. And then family entertainment area, which was kind of interesting because I hadn't thought about that so much, but they say things like laser tag, places where families or kids can go to be in a safe environment, be active and participate. The other thing about those are big revenue generators. Because if you have a laser tag, something like that, they will generate revenue all year as opposed to maybe a certain sport, which may have peaks and valleys. Size in this model that again, this is just a preliminary look, 11 acres is all that would be needed. The estimated cost and things that they have done like this, they estimated now at $37 million. Keep in mind, this isn't a county deal where we're going to spend $37 million. We'll get into later the different types of options of how these types of things will be funded. County be a partner. County provide some type of initial incentive to get people involved. The regional model, basically the same type of thing, but larger. You can see there the differences. Its design is to draw folks from a 2 to 3 hour range for tournaments. And much more expensive. And I can jump to the chase here. In their mind, probably not what we want to do because it's so expensive and you'd be drawing for 2 hours and you'll be competing with the Blaines and the other things. And they said, you're better off sticking with a more local 60 to 90 minutes. You can have tournaments, not as many. If you're going to do the big model, he says you need to really manage it to have tournaments every weekend. It's expensive and we have weather conditions in which certain types of tournaments may not work. Next. So their recommendation is certainly they like, in general, I can tell you they like this as an area. They see a demand. They see that it would fill a need for a lot of different people and users. And it would meet our goals of driving economic development, getting sports facilities available for our young people and adults. So they think it could be successful, again, without doing the feasibility study and the pro forma, but based on what they've seen. Location, funding opportunities, and program will be things that have to be studied extensively going forward as to what we do. This is just an update. Like I say, on Tuesday night, I'll pass out the draft of the latest that we have. SFA, I would like to schedule to have them come or at least be on the video to discuss and answer specific questions. Things that we can do is explore further opportunities as far as how it would be set up. Public-private partnership. Would we be involved in getting it started, but having a private-public commission run this and manage it, or at least work on fundraising? Development incentives. Are there opportunities to work with businesses, associations, and so on to get them involved to maybe fund a wing or to do certain portions of this program? Continue to explore strategic partnerships. For example, they kept asking me, the SFA people did, how many hospitals do you have? Why are you always asking about hospitals? And they said, because whenever we do these things, it's the hospitals that seem to be most interested. They want to be a partner. They want to invest in this type of thing. And sure enough, we had the hospital executives here, and all three were very interested. And all of them came up to me on the side, or two of the three came up to me afterwards and said, hey, let's talk further. I want to see what this is. We may have a play. So they're very interested in this. This meets different needs for them. We can do that. Also, at some point, if we want to continue considering this, a feasibility study with an economic impact analysis, meaning and a pro forma saying, if we set this up, here's how much it's going to cost. Here's how many people you're going to need. Here's the type of maintenance that will be done and how much it's going to cost. And then what the revenues could be expected from it. But what they'll also do is do an economic impact analysis to say, you can expect so many tourists, you can expect so many extra or additional overnight stays. You could, in our case, you could probably expect another hotel being built, depending on the location. Those types of things. And they can give an estimate based on all their experiences and their analysis, how much that will bring in. The other thing is, the reason I'm bringing it up to you guys today, and then again Tuesday night, is what do you believe in terms of the types of needs? I know you don't have a lot in front of you, but it's just an update. But after I present and hand out the document on Tuesday night, you'll be able to read through it, get the questions or concerns to me. We'll feed that into them so that they're better prepared to answer those questions. The other option is we can discontinue this thing altogether. And I put that up there simply because there has been one or two supervisors who have made that suggestion. So because we're not obligated to this, and this is not a short-term project. Even when I spoke with SFA, you know, the question came up, how quickly are we going to move and that type of thing. And she asked me, when do you expect this? And I said, I can't believe we'd be doing it, have this thing going and built before 7 to 10 years. And she says, good, because that's what it'll take, probably 7 years.
Got a question?
Yeah.
How's laser tag?
That's something you and I never played. You guys can tell me, I think kids or people will put on a little thing with, and it's got a device on it, then you get a laser gun.
Like a gun?
Yeah. And you shoot at them, and if you hit them, that thing will beep, beep, beep. Yeah, those are popular.
David?
So one of the things I would think they would want to also make recommendations on is, when I hear 11 acres, you know, this will fit.
Mhm.
I would think you'd want to make sure you had a proposal to say, here's 11 acres today, but so many businesses need to expand in time. And I would be concerned with saying, we're just going to build what we need today on 11 acres and then have constraints down the road where you can't grow.
You're right. And as you know, we have to have a location for anything like this. What I did was present to them off the top of my head, people I've talked to and proposed, and I took them on a drive. I just pointed them out. Now, they looked, they said, okay, but then they went in and they looked at the maps, they looked at the demographics, they looked at all their data, and they have, and we haven't chosen a spot, nor are we leaning toward a spot, but they have recommendations. And I can tell you in the study, one of the things it says, they like the areas of Osceola up to St. Croix Falls. Doesn't mean they don't like Amory, they don't like Folsom Lake, or they don't like Frederick. They didn't say that. They just said, based on our analysis, they do their concentric cones around a location. They look at who's within 30 minutes, how many people are within 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 90 minutes that would actually use this. And they go, because of where you're located in the county, that draws a lot more people from those eastern burbs of the cities. You have more people. That's just their initial leaning right now. But they did look at places. We initially were looking at, hey, we want to have equestrian. We want to have ATV, UTV. Interestingly, now that we've got an intensive park going up Sterling area, one of the reasons they said really expensive to maintain and keep control of. You got noise. You've got one there. We wouldn't recommend you doing it here. Equestrian. They looked at the expense. They looked at what other opportunities are around, and they said, we're not sure. We don't think that's going to, that wouldn't be at the top of their list. All these things, it doesn't mean you can't change it, change your model, change your assumptions or whatever and do, but that's just their initial recommendation.
And that's where I worry about the initial recommendation, that they're saying 11 acres would be sufficient.
Right.
That's what worries me about that.
Gotcha, because there would be, and they do know that they, I have talked with them about, this is a phase type project. We can do this and this, but you may want to do more. And so, yeah, you would find a location where that's a potential thing. They really liked, the idea of a trail hub. The idea that different users would come to a facility or location. It would give people another coming here to use our trails, but then it would give this as a destination for those folks to say, let's zip over here and do this and that.
I thought one of the things that got brought up too was campground being associated with a facility like this, because it seems like a lot of people want to pull into a community. New Richmond's got it right by their ball fields, right by the airport, and that place is full all the time where people come in and can park, next to one of these facilities. Did that make the list?
It did not, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be a good question or possibility. I think the reason it didn't is because I recall, our initial assumptions were camping would be needed if we had outdoor activities that are outdoor ballpark tournaments, you know, baseball, equestrian, where people would need to come and maybe stay the whole weekend there. This is more of an indoor facility, you know, and if it's a community targeted, so 90-minute range, how many people would come? And
I just know our county doesn't have that kind of facility, and I just think it needs to be a little broader than what I see there, but that's just my opinion.
so bring it up to you. I'll do this Tuesday night, not expecting action to be taken, but rather put it on the agenda for next month and people can come and discuss it. At that point, again, like those options said, do we want to continue the investigation? Do we want to table it? And I can continue my outreach, because now my job will be to go back to the stakeholders and say, hey, here's what's coming of it. What are your thoughts? To try and find out, are they really interested enough to become active members of this commission or team to say, we'll get behind it, we'll work with you to make this happen. If I don't sense that commitment from anybody, it's going to be really hard for this county to drive it by themselves. But I think it probably will take the county going out saying, what do you think? And then start to organize those folks. You don't have to act on this before April either. That's the thing, is we want to do the next feasibility study with the economic analysis and so on. I think Tim and I, to get the full boat that they're talking about, it might be $40,000, something like that. Now, I've got that in my contingency fund. I could, you know, if you so deem it, we can do it. But it may be something, let me do some more outreach, come back, and with the new board, start to reintroduce it to that board.
Vince, can you see that the clerk sends me that Tuesday night's presentation?
Yes, for this Tuesday, we'll just make sure we send that.
Thank you.
Okay. So just an update. I know you guys have been hearing me say information's coming. We are getting close. Anything else?
Well, thanks. All right, discussion and recommendations, Board of Supervisors, rules of order. Don't have any recommendations from committee?
I think we had ours from environmental services. I think we have all ours kind of marked up, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that part, I don't know if it's incorporated into this yet. Just to update, you know, like the lime quarry's gone, different things like that. Who was our? Extension, some of that stuff.
I can give you,
Cleaned it up.
We cleaned our part up, I think, pretty good on it, but.
I mean, I did a quick little summary through the committees that have discussed this already. If you'd like to hear the types of things, I think public safety, public works, it is some cleanup stuff. For example, highways never mentioned in your thing. They wanted to add, make sure that the highway reports up through there. They want to designate the recycling center to be part of public safety, public works. Environmental services, again, a lot of cleanup stuff, changing the language. Parks and trails, taking it out of environmental services, putting it in public safety, public works. So there is still a planning reporting to go up into the environmental services because of Bob and his staff do the planning and so on. Scratching out the term lime quarry since we don't own that any longer. And then language. The other topic came up in environmental services. We have Justin Woods, and who is our ag representative. You know, that we need to clean up the language and finalize, does that person vote on everything in environmental services or only ag related? Then I have, now in HHS, there really wasn't much discussion except Supervisor Middleton expressed her desire to have in the rules of order that all public comments that get submitted in terms of written form, letters, or emails, that they be made available on our website. And then Mr. Rowdy has proposed that rules of order in the future should be changed with a simple majority vote. So throughout the course of the term, the 2-year term, if they wanted to change rules of order, you just get 51% and you can do that. So those are the
I don't
things that
think
have
that's a
bubbled
good
up.
idea.
Change
All right,
every
we're
month.
we're not gonna discuss any of them. We're just gonna put some out there. Recommendation, we'll get a chance to discuss them all. So, you have a recommendation?
Yeah, two things I think we should consider too is public comment piece, right? Some committees are taking public comment, like checking online if someone's listening to it at their home. And the county board doesn't do that. Our committee generally, general government, this committee doesn't normally do it. Now today it got asked, but our committees have never taken public comment over the internet, right? And I just want to make sure we all.
Looking for in person.
Well, yeah, I mean, public comment, I mean, everyone's doing a little different. Let's be consistent. I don't care what it is.
Consistency in the public.
Consistency. You know, so there you go. If you think about it, the county board, are we going to allow people to call up home and make public comment from home? I don't know. I feel like they should come down here to give us public comment or write us public comment. They make phone calls into our board meetings, but that's my feeling. And then the other item is just this one item we all keep talking about all the time. And it was in our rules of order, number 4. We always seem to have to ask, is there any conflicts of interest? And I don't think ever once has anyone at that point done anything with it. And I mean, I've had conflicts of interest and I know it's in our rules of order. So when the right time comes, I say, hey, we need to have that on our agenda. We all read it every month. Those are my 2 things that
But specifically to our committee, we only have the 6 things. I don't know if we got to add or subtract it. You know, as our committee itself right here, as the executive committee. I don't see anything to change there. I mean, that would be our duty today is to look at what.
I'd make a recommendation that we take a serious look at February meetings. And cancel them if they're not needed. I mean, there's just too many people traveling. The budget's done. It's almost like sometimes we're just meeting. We need February meetings.
There's no fights. The executive should be about every other month at the moment.
you're talking executive meeting.
I'm talking all.
All county board.
Oh, the whole county shuts down for the month of February.
Not unusual, we've done it before.
Just always, we never met in February. And then someone challenged it. And all of a sudden we had to make an agenda to have something to do.
Last year was the first time we had a February meeting.
Yep, there.
Yeah, so I would just put that out there that we look at that, sure, February meetings. And also term limit. You know, a lot of elected positions have limits. Or we have technically someone could get on here when they're 18 and be on there till they're deceased. I just think we should talk about
Legal, that whole thing, right?
term limits.
Yeah. Is it legal? Can I ask the corporation counsel, is that a, yes, we can talk about it or no?
I don't know, but I'll research that.
First time you ever said it.
All right, that's the only two. Does
Sounds like
anyone
we don't
else?
want to have meetings anymore. Well, February, we might as well get February, March and April, Ross, then.
Well, I mean, but every committee should look closer and
Staff
not have a meeting
Staff
when
would
they
love
don't
it if
need
we
it.
would shut down county
No,
board meetings.
We still work, by the way.
But there's times,
How do we
meetings-
know?
if the meeting only lasts 10 minutes, did you really need to be here? Or 20 minutes, 50,
And
That's what the usual was.
yeah.
I'd be worried about Chad and Vince mostly if we took a month off.
Yeah.
That's what I'd,
But each committee should really look a little closer. I mean, the zoning ones can stay busy, but I mean, some of these, I mean, if you come and you're only here 10 minutes, I mean, is that worth having?
There's no Health and Human Services in February.
No help. See, okay, John already canceled.
start.
It already
but
started.
if I had, yeah, but if I had a piece of property that I needed to rezone on.
Yeah.
And I needed the county to act on it, you guys say, hey, all you board members are taking off because you're traveling,
No.
I'd have a hard time with that.
But I mean, we look at our agenda,
I
and if we
understand,
have enough to have a meeting, we have one.
right?
But there's times we won't need a second one possibly.
I
But
just
like
say, take your
executive,
vacation.
if we
Russ-
don't have to be
Russ
here,
wants to take a vacation, just take it, Russ. You're fine, now that you're retired.
Well, we never used to meet in February, especially county board.
Yeah.
It was challenged one time, now, are we meeting in February just to meet? Or do we truly have enough business?
It's over, I'll let you know.
But just something to
Jan-
look
you
at.
could set it up so you get it done in January, this next meeting, just make it a little longer.
Yeah.
Done in
There's
February.
always that lame duck in there too, that meeting in February and March.
Well, if they're gone, they're gone. I mean, you can do your,
The Honor Prize isn't gonna attend a couple meetings.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a few of them that aren't running.
vacation wise stuff.
Mr. Chair, so is the outcome, just so we understand, because when we embarked on this, I think your idea was you guys would come up with a proposed set of changes for the rules of order. So just for the final document, is the outcome what you want? A draft that you guys put forward for the next board saying, all the committees have looked at this, the executive committee's pulled it together, these are the proposed changes that you should consider when you seat? Is that what you guys want?
We recommend you seriously consider these.
So we'd bring that draft forward, I guess, what, in April? April,
It
okay.
would just be recommended.
I just want to make sure we understand what.
Yeah.
So are we gonna ask Chair, are we asking the staff then, let's say my ask is, are we gonna be consistent with public comment? That goes a little bit with Supervisor Middleton wants them recorded, but it's not really the same, but what are we supposed to, what's the recommendation for staff to do on that issue? Who's gonna make that recommendation?
Each committee.
And Lisa,
Sure. As far as the public comment, I think Supervisor Nelson, or maybe as a last time had asked, or the last couple of times had asked us to do a survey of like the 12 nearest counties to us and to find out just what they were doing. So that is on your desk.
Right.
Need to do a little research because it's kind of done through our office. I did do a little research myself, and I think part of the important thing to determine it is what, prior to COVID, and I guess the way that our office thinks about it, or most county clerk's offices think about it, what is the intent of public comment? Traditionally, it was people would come into the meeting and provide comments, 3 minutes up to 30 minutes total to the board. They wanted the board to hear that. We didn't video it. They weren't put into the minutes. They came and they did that. As we moved to COVID and we had issues with the people attending, we went to the virtual platform, and in case there were issues with that, we wanted to encourage people to do the written comments. So I feel as though I'd like some clarity from either Supervisor Middleton or somebody as far as, I feel like the intent when we post it publicly is a public comment really for posted. What is the intent behind them wanting to make that public? Is it just transparency? Is their intent to just try to persuade others with their opinions, so they want that posted publicly? If there is the county the right forum in order to do that? Brings it forth a lot of questions. So just we would like to understand what the intent is. Normally it was for the public to come and present the board their ideas. Right now they're all being forwarded to the board, written comments. We would just want to know a little bit more about what the intent is and what the intent of the request to change it. Make sure that this would be an appropriate, posting them online or making them available instead of Because right now, they're all available by request. People request them. We will research it by topic or by date, get that information to them, so it's still available. It's just not posted publicly.
Why didn't you call him?
We have a true definition of public comment. Because they can come up and talk about anything.
Right,
So,
the issue with, and I had talked about this with Lisa, defining what a public comment is, because anybody could send letters or emails to every single county board supervisor, whether it's right before a meeting or not. Right now, we modified the rules of order because of COVID and to encourage folks to maybe stay home and still be able to have their comments received. And that's why there's this new influx of all of these written public comments. But going forward, whether you would want to limit the definition of public comment to a comment that is received at the board meeting, either in person or otherwise, there's of course statutory reasons why you would need to have written public comments for certain public hearings, like when there's zoning changes and that sort of thing. But again, then you'd be asking the clerk to define what that public comment is and to rule some of them out. And if it is an automatically updated thing on the website, I think what you're really doing is creating a social media platform for the public to argue with each other, rather than really speaking to the full county board so that their issues are heard, because they'll just have the replies and that kind of thing, and it's always updating constantly. So I think going back to what public comment was originally intended to be, communication to the board by a citizen about something that they feel strongly about.
so it would be defined as not at a public hearing, but they could come to each committee and have public comment, but they would do it like we used to do in person
Or if they can't be in person, they do it in writing.
for a health reason or whatever.
Yeah, if they weren't comfortable to come to the board or they weren't here, they could write us public comment.
But we wouldn't have to, per se, like she said, keep everything.
We keep those written comments on file in our office, and anybody that's interested in it.
Right.
But that's a lot of.
And I guess I'd like to define.
It has to be, it has to be controlled in some form.
So one of the things too is it seems like, Russ, is that, it's fine to have a supervisor, obviously. John would have been back here, but he's dealing with his health stuff in Arizona. Now, are we gonna have supervisors in the future that, hey, I'm a supervisor, but I just don't want to come to the meetings and I'm gonna get on? Now, obviously with COVID, we kind of made a lot of modifications, but how do we handle that issue too, where a supervisor's like, I'm traveling today, I can't be at the committee meeting, but I want to get on the phone and then I'm going to vote on the phone. I mean, are we going to allow that?
Good question. Because Congress doesn't allow that,
Yeah, you got to be there to vote.
Right.
And, we've taken public comment from supervisors over the phone. And even supervisors from other committees have gotten on and made supervisors' requests, which, maybe that's the way we need to go. But again, if you're gonna take this job, you want to be a supervisor, come to your board meetings and you come to your committee meetings. That's my feeling.
Just extenuating circumstance like mine.
Yeah,
A health
you
issue.
got health issue, find your excuse for health issues.
Yeah.
But if you're out riding your horse in Colorado, I'm not gonna take a phone call from Kim
Yeah.
to say, hey, Kim gets to participate in the board meeting because he's out horseback riding.
That's why we need the February meetings not to be there, so we don't want to take off. Just point
We
taken.
have
That's a good,
That's the deal.
We have
that's a good example.
Yeah.
Last year I flew back 4 times, so I was at the meeting, but now I'm under a 45-day radiation treatment and I can't leave.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, 1 minute. Got our review our committee work plan, identify subject matters. Obviously not gonna make it into a full session.
Could we do our closed session with general government and do it together? Is there anything substantial?
Yeah, there's an update.
We could maybe do that, do it at the beginning of the meeting, so.
I can stay.
If you want to stay for the entire.
Want to hear the
Not the whole thing, I want to just do it right away.
Well, maybe we can just, I'd make,
Oh, it is.
Chair just ask you to change the agenda next meeting and allow us to do the closed session at the beginning of general government then.
We can stay.
Yeah, so you guys can stay and get out here.
You can stay.
So, right.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, I don't want.
Yeah,
Your papers, it's too thick.
And, you know, I don't even know that we need to go into closed session for the update. There at once.
So would you do that at the beginning of the next meeting and then?
We can do that.
Stay for that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Chair.
Second.
all in favor?
All right.
701.
Bye.
701? 701.